If you're anything like me, an average pilot at best in War Thunder, the moment you get up there in the BR, I bet a lot of your games look like this. And we all know how frustrating it can be to just constantly get slapped out of the sky like you're nothing, game after game after game. And in this video, I want to share with you the one thing that helped me out the most, an average War Thunder pilot achieve better success in AirRB. And we're going to do that by switching from a technical point of view to a mental point of view. The technical point of view would be mastering technical skills. You know all the abilities of every aircraft. You know all the abilities of every missile, of every gun, of every shell. You know what maneuvers to perform in a fight. It's based on knowledge. The mental point of view is going to be keeping a state of mind and then forming all of your tactical decisions based on that state of mind. I personally was really struggling with AirRB once I got high enough in the BRs. I kept trying to master every little aspect of every plane that I had. And it just wasn't working because there are so many planes and there's so many flight characteristics to memorize. I just couldn't do it. So I got online and did some research into one of the most prolific aces the world has ever seen, Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, and how his core tenets of aerial warfare guided every single engagement that he was in, and incorporating some of his tenets into my own War Thunder game. And trying to go back to the basics of dogfighting, bringing old school tactics to modern era vehicles. While Richthofen was the most successful German pilot of World War I, he actually was mentored by Germany's ace early in the war, Oswald Bohlke. He actually had 8 tenets, but in this video, I'm going to be focusing on the 3 that helped me the most. There's a link in the description to the article that has the rest of them if you're curious about them. But the 3 tenets that helped me the most: use surprise to get the upper hand, use caution, especially when over enemy lines, and choosing your targets wisely. When we're talking about gaining surprise to get the upper hand, an example of this would be sitting at high altitude with the sun at your back so the enemy can't look up and see you. Now obviously in War Thunder this can be negated by pilot skill because you have an indicator, but maintaining an altitude advantage is still important nonetheless. So many players like to tunnel vision and go straight into the furball right at the start of an AirRB game. Sometimes AirRB games take a while to develop, and you want to feel like you need to get into the action right away so you're maximizing the amount of RP that you're getting with your time. But you don't get very much RP if you just die right away. I've gotten to the habit of climbing and just hanging towards the side of the furball, looking for targets that try to get out of the furball or try to escape, and then I dive on their tail. More often than not, these aircraft have already been damaged somewhat and have already spent quite a bit of their armament. Surprise is also very handy, especially when you got an enemy trying to dogfight with your teammate. How many of you have experienced tunnel vision before in a dogfight, where you fixate on one enemy and you're doing everything in your power to focus on him and take him down? Well, when you're tunnel visioning on one opponent, you're not paying attention to what's around you. And if you know that you're susceptible to that, you know the enemy is probably susceptible to that too. When he's chasing your teammate down, that's your opportunity to get in there and get on his tail. Generally, when enemy players are chasing your allies, they're flying in somewhat of a straight line, so you're not risking the G tolerance on your missiles becoming a problem. The next tenet I'm going to focus on is use caution, especially when over enemy lines. The description says, while retreat is rarely a safe option in any dogfight, Bohlke maintained when mixing it up over hostile territory, keep an eye on the compass and always have an escape route back to friendly lines open just in case. There's an awesome scene in the movie The Red Baron where his brother Lothar says this:
It's a thin line between cowardice and cleverness.
And I think that's important because how many times when you're engaging someone, he has a buddy show up, or you can see a couple enemy planes closing on your position rather quickly, and you need to get out of there because you don't have a chance of winning a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3. And also, let's face it, you're always going to have that teammate in the chat who calls you a coward because you're not getting in the fight. But what good are you in achieving victory if you rush in blindly and die, versus recognizing when you can't win and you retreat to give yourself a chance to fight again? You'd give yourself a chance to fight again literally every time. And if enemies choose to pursue you, that potentially pulls them out of position and away from their friendlies. So maintaining that situational awareness of where your teammates are so you can dive and gain some speed and get out of there has a great chance to increase your life expectancy. And the longer you're alive and in the battle, the higher the chance of you actually being able to influence it in some way. I firmly believe that. And I'm sure the idea of ambush tactics followed by a retreat isn't going to be popular among a lot of players. There's no honor in that, etc. But it's important to remember that War Thunder is a war game, and the objective is to kill your opponents and win the match. And lastly, choose your targets wisely. It's so easy to see the one bomber or ground attacker going to bomb your base, and you want to dive on it and get on his tail. But what happens if it's like a tornado because of the constant up tiers and that dude just zooms away from you? Congratulations, you just wasted 30 seconds of the battle chasing a target that you had no chance of catching up to begin with, when you could have helped your ally 2v1 an F4S2 that just came out. Because if both of you had teamed up to take that F4 down, that's one of the best planes out of the battle. So being able to recognize your own strengths and weaknesses and being able to analyze the battle situations to help you decide what is the most dangerous target right now. Because chances are that slow moving Su-25 or whatever the heck A-10 that wants to go bomb your base, chances are that's not the biggest threat on the battlefield. And I totally get the whole teammate aspect. No one wants to help their teammates because teammates don't help them. But if you're flying around and you're not currently engaged and you see a teammate fighting a far superior plane, if you can jump in there and turn the tides of that fight and take him out, then that only strengthens your team's position later in the battle. There's a pretty famous acronym out there in the world called KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overcomplicate things. Keep it simple, because if it's simple, it's easier to remember and it's easier to execute. Don't get so overwhelmed trying to understand every single plane's flight characteristics, what every single plane is capable of, what every single type or variant of missile is capable of, because there's just so much information, there's no way you're going to remember all of it. But if you set a mental objective, such as, I am not going to let the enemy surprise me, I am going to choose my targets wisely, and I'm going to give myself an escape route if I get in trouble. Those are 3 simple statements that you can guide every single decision you make on the battlefield by. But even if your mentality only consists of 3 simple tenets, it prevents you from flying by the seat of your pants.
Fitness report says it all. He's a wild card. Flies by the seat of his pants. Completely unpredictable.
Because at least a bad plan is better than no plan at all. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to performing better in AirRB. It's going to change from person to person, and what I talked about in today's video is just what helped me the most. There are still going to be plenty of games in which you probably don't get a kill. Same goes for me, or when your team just gets absolutely obliterated in the first 5 seconds. But if you can go from averaging 1 kill or no kills to 1 kill to 2 kills a game, that makes the grind a lot more bearable, and that was my goal. Try to get everyone to perform better in their matches. If you learned something from today's video, please consider hitting that thumbs up and also subscribing for more. I do have more tutorials planned in the future. Also down below, leave a comment on things that helped you or if you disagree with what I said. Thank you so much for your support as always, everyone. Be sure to check out my other tutorial videos if you haven't already, and I'll see all of you in the next one.